A variable is simply something that stores information. Think of a variable like a labeled box. Inside this box, there's a piece of information. This information can be a number, some text, a check or an X mark, or something else. The box's label is the variable's name, and the thing inside the box is the information the variable is storing. For example, let's say you have a box labeled age. Inside the box is the number 21. The variable is called age and has a value of 21. Let's set this up in the code. The link to the online editor I'm using is in the description, by the way. To declare a variable, which means to say the variable exists, type the variable's name equals 21. But why does a variable have a name? So you have 10 boxes in a room and you're trying to find the one that has the age information in it. Obviously, it's going to be much easier to find when it's labeled age. Maybe in our code, we want to print age to the console. Just in case you don't remember, the print function writes something to the console. To print age, simply type print and in the parentheses, the name of the variable, which is age. In the last video, we surrounded whatever was in parentheses in quotations. But why aren't we doing that here? That's because when writing the name of a variable, you don't put anything around it. Just like how in real life you have different types of things like colors, numbers, and words, you also have different types of Python variables. Data types is just a smart sounding way for saying different types of data that can be stored in a variable. Here are a few common ones you should know. There are integers, which are whole numbers, like the number of apples in a box, floats, which are numbers with decimal points, like the price of an item, strings, which are a sequence of characters like a word or sentence, and finally booleans, which represent a true or false value. This is like answering a yes or no question. Now let's go back to that question. Why doesn't the variable have quotations around it? The age variable in the print function doesn't have quotations around it because it's a variable. But what if it wasn't a variable and we just put the raw value, which in this case is 21? There still aren't any quotation marks around it. That's because you only put quotation marks around strings. Here are some rules to remember when writing different data types. Integers and floats are both numbers and you just write the number with nothing around it. Strings are going to have quotation marks surrounding the text, like how in a book dialogue will have quotations around it. For booleans, say the variable is equal to true or false, the first letter of both being capitalized. There are also rules for naming variables. One you should definitely remember is that your variable names should only start with letters or underscores. After that, you can use letters, underscores, and numbers, but numbers can't go at the start of your variable name. Also, if you want to have a variable name with more than one word, like house number, it's a good practice to separate the words with an underscore. Okay, and the last thing you want to do is change the values of the variables. Take a look at the age variable that's an integer, meaning a whole number. At some point, we're going to want to change this to 22, at least I hope so. To do this, type the variable name and set it equal to the new value. The name of the variable, which is age, equals 22. So to recap, you learned how to create a variable and set its value. To do this, type the variable's name and what it's equal to. There are also different data types or types of variables, and the ones you need to know are integers, which are whole numbers, and you type their values like this. Floats, which are decimal numbers, and you type them like this. Strings, which are a sequence of characters like a word or sentence, and they look like this. And finally, booleans, a true or false value, and they look like this. Make sure you're capitalizing the first letter of true or false. And to change the value of a variable, simply type its name again and set it equal to the value you want. Now, you've learned the basics of variables in Python. I want you to create 4 variables with the correct data types. The first 2 variables should be any car's manufacturer and model. The third should be a number for the year it was made. And the last should be a variable representing whether the vehicle is a sedan or not. Then print all of these variables into the console. Post your solutions into the comments, and if I'm not feeling lazy, I might review them and give you feedback.